Welcome everyone. This is your host Yusuf, and tonight we welcome Dr. Jonathan Locust, a scholar, consciousness explorer, and founder of Rise. His path from academic success to burnout, followed by a profound 24-day water fast, reshaped his understanding of healing, integrity, and the power of awareness. In this conversation, we dive into what it means to find purpose in the difficult chapters, why consciousness is often the missing ingredient in modern wellness, and how true leadership emerges when we learn to integrate faith, resilience, and inner clarity. Dr. J, I welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you also for the work that you are doing to help increase the consciousness.
Thank you so much, sir. It means a lot. So, Dr. J, you have lived both the academic world and the consciousness world. When did you first sense that outward success was masking an inner collapse?
Yeah, for me, it was when I had a health issue. And I was pretty much told when I got this health issue that I would have to be on medicine for the rest of my life, that I would not be able to well, if I had other children, another child, that they would be in risk of having severe disabilities of everything. So because I had this health issue, that was kind of like a turning point to me because everything kind of on the outer and looked good. I had finished my PhD. I had got this great job on the path of being a university president. So everything was really kind of really looking good on the up and up. But it was when I had that health issue when I started to investigate other ways in which other cultures have achieved higher levels of consciousness and the processes in which they did to do so. And as I started to investigate these things, it was that which really not only expanded, increased my consciousness, but really put me on a journey where I did a 24-day water fast, meditated and had was able to understand the reason behind what I had and was able to heal myself. So for me, it was the health issue where that showed there was a misalignment in my life that I then had to deal with and take care of, but was the trajectory for a more conscious based path.
Do you think most people recognize that moment in themselves, or do they only see it in hindsight?
I think depending on what you're experiencing, that you're going to actually have that moment because you will come to everybody that I know have difficult time in their life, and I'm upon those difficult times. It's how do you get past it? How do you process it? And that's a part of resilience. Do you get up? But I can tell you that, I decided in my mind that if I needed to fast for 40 days without food and just water to be able to heal myself, I was going to heal myself. So I think that people do come across a moment, but it starts to then see like what is that person's willpower? What is that person's motivation? Who were the people that you are around at the time that may either be encouraging you or discouraging you for certain things? So I believe everybody does come across that moment, but of course there's so many different factors that kind of him sees what they're going to do. But I would say that since we are here for conscious based lessons and to grow, you're going to keep experiencing that thing until there is a correction in the path or a change in perspective.
Mm, that's so true. Once you share your experience, I'll connect it to the, you know, it connects with the silent burnout many listeners carry. while they still perform at high levels.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, there's certain things that can like I guess two things can also be two things can be true at the same time, right? So it could be like it'd be true that somebody's performing very, very well on the outside. They're doing it, they're making, great money. But in the inside, also true that uh th- what they're building on the outside world is an exact opposite of the crumbling that's happening on the inside. And both of those things can be true. And I think just like kind of like you mentioned,
Mm,
it it becomes a part of, that person's discovery for them to be able to realize not only is there's something where correction can be made, because a lot of the times, and I know for me, I spent time really thinking that, okay, once I achieve this outer success, that was going to be a direct um kind of inflection on how I felt inside. And that's just not true. Like, and I think it's when people hit kind of that ceiling, it's that ceiling of, wow, all the things that I've been dreaming about that I think would bring me make me feel successful on the inside. All of this outside success is helpful, and we need it, it's not why I'm here. It's not necessarily fulfilling that purpose. And I think that's where people really start to seek and try to understand what their calling is.
mm. I totally agree with you. When you start realizing what your calling is and you start aligning yourself with it, you reach to a whole new different level.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's what you're really talking about is, having things in alignment, being in the being in a flow state. And I also say, when things are, and just from my personal story, so even when I ended up eventually quitting my job to do what I'm doing now, I quit my job, which is a great salaried six-figure position, with two children, moving to another state. And I can say that that was probably one of the scariest things in my life, of leaving a job and really trying to figure out how am I going to figure out how to support myself and my family. But I also realized that if I would have continued in that path, that there was not alignment there. So I'll say that, for things to be in alignment, you may have to overcome some fear-based things and make some leaps of, because it was me quitting my job and to do what I'm doing now was a huge leap of faith. So it was not easy, but I can say that I'm in the most alignment that I have been ever in my life.
True. And let's talk about your 24-day water fast, which is itself a powerful story. Do Let's just start by you telling us the whole story about it. And I really want to know what was the experience that you have about faith, resilience, and human potential that you could learn from that particular experience?
Absolutely. Well, I kind of referenced it a little bit earlier that when the fast for me really became an understanding of, okay, what is fasting, and what are the benefits of fasting, what is intentional fasting. And one of the things that I realized, kind of in a few different areas kind of before the fast, was everything that we experience and we go through has a lesson attached to it. So if you have something that you're going through that you may not necessarily find savory, or you may not like, well, if you can find the lesson behind that experience, then that experience then can then progress, and you can move past it, because it's fulfilled its mission. And so the thing for me became to really understand not only why I had what I had, but to also understand how fasting can really play into that understanding to force a change of heal. And what I believe, like in regard to like intentional fasting, we talk about kind of human potential. What I realize is whatever whatever the the will of the person can manifest it.
Hmm.
For me, it was okay. I am going to heal myself. Me and my wife, we want to have another child. We want to be able to have. So I had like these motivations that really I would say gave me a motivation to want to be able to heal myself. But I was just I knew that it was going to happen. So when I did the fast, I ended up doing it was a water fast. I did 14 days straight. Ended up eating like a piece of fruit. Um, it was at the time I was still working out, so I did lose a lot of weight. And then I did like another 10 days after that. And I would say when you're fasting, pretty much if you once you get past day 3, you kind of stop being hungry. And so after day 3 is pretty much it's a lot easier. I also say that one thing that just I've never felt anything like it, but when you are fasting and you're withholding something to progress in some way, whether it's spiritually or consciously, what happens is there is a greater connection to the creator, to source. And I can say that during that fast, I felt such a huge connection to nature, to the sky, to the universe, to all these different things that I hadn't felt before. And I know was because I believe I was at a higher state of consciousness as I was going through that fast.
Hmm. Wow. And you often say that consciousness is the missing piece in how we heal and work. What does consciousness add that traditional wellness programs tend to overlook?
Oh man, that's a really good question. Thank you for that. And I think like consciousness for one is and it's interesting because like consciousness in itself really doesn't have like a kind of an operational definition, right? So even there's people trying to investigate like what it actually is. But but that's something that I constantly rise that we've kind of been investigating. So when we talk about like what is consciousness and why is it the missing piece, I kind of I kind of define it and look at consciousness as not only different levels and higher levels of awareness, understanding, uh int- intuition. So I believe intuition is also also tied into and connected with it. So when I think about consciousness being not only a lot of these different things of awareness, but I think there's a piece of it that has that two factors. One of them is it's personalized. So you yourself you had different experiences that makes us unique and we have unique gifts. So our unique gifts and our unique experiences, we're going to have a journey of consciousness that's going to be unique to us. And that doesn't mean that we don't all kind of go through the same framework, but it is going to be unique. And I will say the kind of that last part of it is you really see a mix of what I will say faith and resilience. And that faith and resilience comes in of kind of going out and knowing that when you may be meditating and you may not necessarily feel like your meditation was great, having the faith that you did it and you have progressed in a way you do it, and but also being resilient to go back the next day to give it another try, to do it again, and to be able to say, okay, well, resilience is not about just continuing to doing the same thing over. Resilience is also about analytical thinking. What did I do last time that I can maybe improve on? So I think consciousness really becomes a kind of an intermix of levels of awareness, resilience, and faith.
That's so true. You know, the reflection that you just gave us is very new, and I would say very novel, in fact, because the traditional sense is talking in a very different way, and the perspective that you put is very different.
Well, for one, I'll say thank you for that, and two, you know, this has come from, and not only an interest for me, but an investigation of not only what these things mean, but what are the best ways to talk about them.
Mm.
Because since I worked in higher education, I could tell you that when you think about like quantum physics or these areas of consciousness, you're either going towards more of a physics path. So it's people who are doing like, different research on electrons and things like that. So the real kind of science path, technology path, or you go into the more philosophical path and you're asking like, what is the meaning of life? And so when you look at, but there's no kind of bridge between the two, right? So for me, kind of at a university level, I found it very, very difficult to try to have conversations and try to bridge the gap that I felt was not being a bridge. Though I worked with some wonderful, beautiful people who were very, very intelligent. So I started to then investigate myself what these things mean, but then also to say, how can we have these conversations, especially in the US? It's a very religious kind of country with Christianity being dominant, my father being a Pentecostal bishop. So, how can we also talk about these things about conscious and inner growth that is not an impedance on anyone's religious beliefs? So, I think being able to navigate it in a way where people can maybe approach it in a more curious and investigatory fashion opposed to more of a religious type framework, which is what we really want to try to stay away from.
Wow. And your journey included encountering people who tried to exploit your vulnerability. How did those moments shape your understanding of trust and discernment?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. I would say
Mhm.
I was naive because I believed that, well, people would be operating in a fashion that is maybe similar to, okay, let's say for in higher education, you colleges and universities go through accreditation. So everything that they do is has a process of being recorded and is checked upon. Hospitals in the US and things, they have the Joint Commission. So I'm kind of assuming that these processes kind of exist in these other areas, which I found out that they don't. So I came into it very naive, that thinking that there was integrity in the space, which I found out there wasn't. So as I encountered folks, fortunately, since my PhD is in research, I asked a lot of questions. So I was able to kind of get to the bottom of some of these things, to see that some of these people were not trying to help others. They were just trying to take advantage of people who were in a vulnerable state. So that really became the moment to say, okay, as people are going through difficult times in their life and they're seeking and looking for other perspectives, then how can we be that space that exists, that is safe, but also to let people know that when you're talking to someone and you're looking for some help, the person you are talking to has gone through a 5-step vetting process. We did a background check. We checked their credentials. They've been interviewed twice. these things to make sure that nobody's going to get scammed. So that was that moment of feeling hurt, of feeling betrayed, and this understanding that integrity needed to be included in the space was what we saw was an is an area of opportunity where we can not only fulfill that gap, but be of service to people in the process.
Mm, wow. And can you tell me more about, do you think that adversity is sometimes the most accurate teacher?
Yes, yes. So I do because I believe when we are going through things and we are experiencing adverse situations, that that is a process of refining our character, of refining our personality to see then how we are then responding and acting in the moment.
Hmm.
And it's in those times of adversity that, of course, it's horrible going through it. But when you look back at those times and you can see that I've been able to get through it, those become some of the most proudest moments. So I believe those moments of adversity are really those areas that are not only difficult for us at the time, but they become statues and monuments of success as we look at our life's path.
Hmm. Are there any ways that our listeners can connect with you?
Absolutely. Uh, if there's any questions that anyone has, they can email me at Jonathan Jonathan at consirise.com. Consirise is CONSCIRISE. I can be followed on Instagram at JLOCUSTJR, J Locust Jr. You can find us at Concy Rise, at Concy Rise on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook. Follow me on LinkedIn, Dr. Jonathan Locust Jr. And join our community. We have a free community that you don't have to pay anything. We have wonderful events that's going on all year round. And you can join our community. You can go to concyrise.com or go to community.concyrise.com to join our community. We would love to have you or your listeners join us.
These all the links will be pasted in the description. So if you want to join Dr. J, do follow these links. Dr. J, do you have any last message that you want to leave us with?
You know, oh, I appreciate not only you giving me the opportunity to be on here, but one thing I will tell your listeners is that if you ever feel like you're going through something difficult, like you're experiencing stress and things are just hard, just know that at any point in time you can take some intentional breaths to release what is no longer serving you. And sometimes people say, well, what about I'm releasing those things into the environment? Well, we know that we breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. Well, carbon dioxide is the food for plants, and their waste is our food. So just know if you're just going through something and you just need to release, just breathe in high vibrational light, and whatever that looks like or feels like to you,
Hmm.
breathe out what no longer serves you. Do that a few times throughout the day, as much as you want. You have access to it all the time. And just like you're breathing in that new life and that new energy that is replacing those things that no longer serve you. So just know you can do that at any point of time. You can sit there and take that breath and take those breaths to release what you no longer need.
Wow. As we close this conversation, Let this conversation encourage you to see the hard seasons not as disruptions but as invitations. Healing requires honesty, leadership requires awareness, and purpose often emerges right where life feels the most challenging. If you begin listening inward, trusting your resilience, and honoring your consciousness, you create a life and a way of leading that is aligned, sustainable, and deeply human. Your transformation begins with choosing awareness. I'll see you next time. Until then, have a very good day.